Fabrizio, thank you so much once again for taking the time to speak with us. It's always a pleasure for us to come and spend time with you.
You're so kind.
And look at your marvelous creations. So, the topic of the day, in fact, the topic of our entire time here in Geneva during this week in particular, is to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Serpenti, which is the icon. Now, Bulgari has so many beautiful collections, exceptional collections, and you are the creative master of all that is coming out of Bulgari on this side. But the Serpenti is something special. I think we can all agree. And to celebrate the 75th anniversary, we have 4 very special editions of the Serpenti, a most glorious quartet of watches we can see with a very, very special collaborator, Tadao Ando, which, you know, to us is a familiar name because if we've been following Bulgari for a while, we noticed that, you know, it's not the first collaboration. But tell us, how did this story start with?
It was a great achievement for me from a personal point of view as a designer to have the opportunity to make a watch, to make something together with Tadao. The first time that we met, it was, I don't remember how many years ago, it was in Osaka, his own studio, and it was, for me, it was a dream because you can see a lot of in-scale model about architecture, fantastic books, drawings on the wall. So it was like...
When you met him for that first time, was it for professional reasons?
Yes, it for professional reason. It was because the Japanese team that is very proactive, they say, Fabrizio, what do you think to have a collaboration with the architect Tadao Ando? You say, are you joking? It's,
because of course, you know...
yes, for sure, he's one of the most important contemporary architects around the world. So I say, guys, it's going to be fantastic, but honestly, I don't know what I can say to Tadao Ando because he's a legend, he's a master. So I'm in this kind of situation, I close my mouth and I open the ear and start to listen, to listen what's going on. And Tadao was very kind. I start to look at around me in this fantastic studio, and we start to discuss about watches. I was a bit naive, so I arrived in Japan with some dials to try to facilitate the work to Tadao. But it was very kind with me, say, yes, it's beautiful, but Fabrizio, I have a problem. You know, the watch is almost perfect. I don't know what I have to do. So it was one of the most important achievements of my career, that Tadao Ando tell you the watch is almost perfect. Honestly, I don't know what I have to do. Say, we can do a lot of things. And we can do this and that. I start to show you some dials that we prepare. The meeting was very interesting. Tadao, after the meeting, disappeared for 6 months. And I say, what's going on? Yes, but he's traveling overseas, we need time, we need time. At a certain moment, Tadao sent me a sketch about an idea. I say, I love the black hole because I was impressed by the first picture of the space agency.
Something very technological, but also very...
Exactly. And in my mind was, this is amazing because the Finissimo is a very thin watch and the black hole is one of the biggest things in the universe. And I say, it's going to be fantastic, go ahead with your idea, I don't know what's going on, but...
But conceptually, immediately it was...
Yes, the connection was very, very interesting. And after a few months, Tadao present his dial with the spiral design, with the 12, all the indexes, the Bulgari logo. He makes his job in a very correct way. And I start to call him and say, Tadao, honestly, I think that we don't need the Bulgari logo. We don't need the 12, the 6, the indexes. This is your dial. Everybody knows the aesthetic of the Octo Finissimo. So I decided to remove. And it was very surprised about that because I cannot expect that a huge brand like Bulgari can remove the logo from the dial to have my design as the best as possible and say, yeah, this is our approach.
But that is something to say about also the strength of the design that you take with the logo. You still know. It's like Tadao's work. You look at something he's designed. You don't have to see his name on it.
Exactly.
You see his touch.
The signature is very, very clear.
The approach. And of course, then you went on to do a second Octo Finissimo with Tadao Ando, which was also very beautiful.
It's even the most beautiful one because it's with the slice of moon. In a certain moment, I say, what's going on now? And he replied, now you start to see the light.
Because that's perfect. To me, I actually appreciate the second one more.
And, For me, yeah, it's the black hole, the spiral design, but the slice of moon that was made, it was the position of the slice of moon is not a common position. So when you see the dial, the center of the spiral design in both dial is not exactly at the center of the second counter. But for me, the second one is the perfect representation of a Zen garden. It's absolutely a Zen garden in terms of proportions and decorative elements.
Yeah. And it's not so much about the symmetry that it brings, but it's also like how you feel.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
it's how it makes you feel. Now, coming to the Serpenti, when you decided to, hey, let's work on the Serpenti together. Obviously, these are watches with a very, very different kind of personality from the Octo. In the Octo, you see that real architectural character, that personality. You can be strong, but also very like sort of very emotive at the same time. Whereas the Serpenti is immediately very direct. It's very tactile. It is very voluptuous. It is very sensual in a way that you don't see at first in the Octo Finissimo. So did you change a bit the approach here and there? Did you put some limits? Because also it's such an icon.
Yeah, you know, it's a fantastic journey, 75 years. And you see that we play with the shape of Serpenti in so many times, so many different things. And when you see the Octo Finissimo, when you see the Serpenti, at the end it's a totally different object with the same brand, with the same approach. It's difficult to say that we are talking about a piece of jewelry or a timepiece. You know, with the Serpenti to Bogaz is the perfect Bulgari watch, is absolutely the essence of the DNA of the brand. And when you see the Octo Finissimo, it's difficult to say that we are talking about one of the most incredible achievements in Swiss watchmaking industry, or is it just a cool, very chic watch. Is exactly the same, but we were very happy when Tadao decided to have another collaboration with us, because if I remember well, this time the idea comes directly for him to celebrate the nature. And Tadao is very close to the nature, because even from the Japanese culture, the nature is a very important thing. It's not just the nature. So we say, guys, it's going to be an amazing opportunity for us to play again with this very important guest. But what's going on? Because immediately the brief that we received from Tadao was very wide.
Did he propose you to work with the Serpenti?
I think that Tadao, if I remember well, Tadao proposed to have a project together to talk about the nature. And we start immediately to think this is going to be a fantastic opportunity to have the first collaboration on Serpenti.
Because of that natural connection.
So is one of the most, maybe is the most important sign from the brand, and is a natural element because it's a snake. And the circles start to close when we have the idea, to play with precious materials. It was a very long process, even because Tadao is not so easy to be in contact with him, because he's traveled like crazy. He has a lot of projects around the world. And you have a very small windows to talk with him.
And you have to jump.
Exactly. You have to jump in over the monitor. It's always a Zoom call, because our agenda is impossible to match.
But that's perfect. It's like, you know, when talking of nature, it's like, you know, when a flower is blossoming.
Yes, exactly.
You have to catch it exactly at the right time.
Exactly. That's why the nature is so important for Japanese, because it's not something that is a circle. No, you see the cherry blossom is just in 1 week in Tokyo, and they love this kind of things. So
and
immediately,
moment,
exactly, you have to think about that. And we had the idea to work with the Serpenti, I think the day 2. And they say, but what's going on? Because Tadao is very picky. We cannot make, we cannot joke with him, because we start to discuss about the seasons. And Bulgari is very well known for the colors, for the color gemstones, for the art stones. We love to play with colors. And Tadao loves to play with the seasons and with the natural elements. So again, another parts of the puzzle was on the table. So we start to have the nature, the Serpenti, the seasons, the colors, all the elements start to have the right position. The problem was to find the right stones, and Tadao was not so it's not so easy to have, how can I say, Tadao is one idea and that's it. Yes, but we would love to have this kind of color, but for me, it's not the right color.
He doesn't deviate a lot from his original vision.
The negotiation is not so agile, let me say, even if we know each other, even if Tadao know the brand and we know Tadao, but the idea that Tadao had was very, very clear from the beginning.
So how far is this from the original vision?
We play a lot with the stones because in a certain moment, first of all, from a technical point of view, the dial of this watch, the the Serpenti Tubogas is not a flat dial.
Yes.
It's a curved dial with the part of the movement inside, so it's so thick, but when you have a curved dial, to play with this kind of mosaic is not so easy at all. The idea was to have a noble so in jewelry, we used to play with aventurine, with malachite, with mother of pearl, with a lot of art stones.
Stones with a lot of visual texture.
Exactly. But to cut, for example, a diva pendant, you took a piece of hard stones and you start to cut, and you have a lot of leftover.
Yes.
That honestly, that's a pity because are very noble leftover and they cost a lot. In a certain moment, the idea of the nature, the idea of the seasons, the idea of the art stones, to be again close to the nature, I start to say, but guys, that's a really pity that we have to throw out a lot of this leftover because it's a noble material, it's natural material. So can we think about the way to use and to make it even more noble?
And to bring it closer to the spirit of nature, because in nature you save everything. Everything is used in a good way.
And another thing that was clear in my mind was how can we match the Italian savoir-faire of mosaic and Florentine mosaic, that it's even more difficult because it's a mosaic with art stones on this kind of project. So
and it's irregular.
Exactly. I love this kind of pattern, irregular pattern. Each watch, its dial is different. We have a very not so wide, let me say, approach in terms of shades and shapes. Because we cannot accept a certain kind of variation of color, because otherwise the dial, it's a nightmare. And we cannot accept a certain variation of shapes, because otherwise it's impossible to put the element on the carved dial.
But as an architect, I imagine Tadao Ando is very familiar with technical constraints and technical limits.
You have to imagine that we have to produce the watch. We have to produce the dial. So first of all, Tadao, okay for you if we play with the Serpenti? Yes, great. Tadao, we had an idea. We would love to play with natural stones and to make it even more noble. And it could be okay for you. Yes, this is a fantastic idea that respects exactly what I have in mind.
Yeah.
And starting from this point, we spent 2 years to have the right fine-tuning on the dial, which kind of stones we have to use, because for Tadao, the colors, he had a very precise pictures in his mind about the 4 seasons.
Yes.
And the idea was to respect.
That was going to be my next question, actually. How did you choose the colors of the stones and the texture of the stones to correspond to each season? Because we start with this one.
Yeah.
Yes, we start with this one, which is spring.
Yeah.
Which is a bicolor bracelet on the tubogas, which is exceptional. The fit is so beautiful. It feels so natural. And you have this beautiful blush pink, which, as you described just now, the cherry blossom season.
This is the moment.
It really gives that that feeling. And then we move on to, I guess, this one, the green of summer and the stones. And it's actually, you know, this is rose gold, as we can see, and this is more towards the yellow gold side of things, which is the richness of the color of summer. And it becomes more deep, more solar, the solarity of the color that really comes through in the yellow gold and the green. And then autumn.
Autumn, yes.
Of course, with the full rose gold, with the color of the foliage and the trees when they turn. And then this one with the purity.
We receive pictures from Tadao about different color, about different season. And the images, if I remember very well, it was a top view of a forest or a top view or a glacier. So for us, it was very interesting to catch the different green when you talk about the summer. The spring with the cherry blossom mood that is very important for Japanese. Exactly. That's why he appreciates a lot the idea of this kind of mosaic, because in this way you could have a lot of different shades of the same color that represent very well the trees, for example. Because the nature doesn't have just one color, it's not just a Pantone color, it's a mix of different colors. So if you see two trees, you don't see the same green. It looks green, but at the end, if you're gonna see each element, it's gonna be different. So the idea was to play with the stones, to have this idea of savoir-faire, to have this idea of Italian mosaics, and play with different parts of the same stones to represent different color of the nature.
It's not just an aesthetic challenge, it's also a technical challenge.
It was a very technical challenge, because if I remember well, we made, I don't remember, so many trials for each kind of seasons to try to respect.
Were there some stones that you tried and in the end, this is not right, let's...
Some stones, first of all, we don't have it because we don't use some stones. And the idea was to use and capitalize on, to be close to the nature, to don't have leftover that we have to throw out, to work with stones that we already used. To work with stones that is possible to work in a very tiny part, because we have to apply it on top of the dial with these carved shapes. To have the perfect combination in terms of shades, to have the right combination in terms of sizes, and to fill the space between one stone and the other. And you can see which kind of color we have to use to fill the space between one stone and the other. So it was a long process, because it's a different step and even different technology. And at the end, when you see the watch, the dial must have a very wow effect. And each dial is different. So this was very important for us, because in nature it's not easy to find two times the same things.
No.
And we want to respect the brief from Tadao and our original idea to work to have a very noble material that comes from the nature in this way. So it was often I say that when you see a simple things, it's the most difficult things to do.
Yes, of course. And you said that it took 2 years to come to the final piece when you first started the discussion and it came to the finality of it. And I think the result is something that we see a lot, we experience a lot in nature. You don't see the work that's behind.
Exactly. And not you have to receive the approval from Tadao. This is not something that you can say, okay, we will see what's going on.
But he sees that you have respected the vision and that, you know.
He appreciated a lot the products and the product and the idea to use this kind of stones, because it was very in line with his original idea.
Do you know if there is a particular one that he prefers?
Honestly, I don't think so. He loves the concept, and it was in love for the idea to use natural stones in this way.
And what about yourself?
I prefer the brown one.
Yes.
First of all, because I love the tubogas in rose gold, and I love these shades. It's absolutely fantastic. Everything is matching in a very Bulgari way, let me say.
Yes. And which one do you think, because they all bring out different sides of the Serpenti, of course. This one is really much more warm and much more rich. This one is more light. This one is almost a bit joyful in a way.
You know, but for me it's difficult to choose, because always my kids.
For sure.
I love the steel one because it's very pure. It's the same concept of the brown one, but in steel. So it's very consistent, the dial and the material of the bracelet. I love the two tones, because it's one of the most iconic tubogas that we made. I don't remember, maybe 50 years ago, it was the 2-tone and 3-tone. So each one has his own
side, facet.
Yes, exactly. And each one talk about the brand in a different way.
But in a way, this is the perfect way to celebrate the Serpenti, because you see all the different personalities, the different traits that can be expressed by this iconic watch. And I think it's the perfect way to say happy birthday, happy 75th birthday to the Serpenti.
Great. He's still young, eh?
Yeah, of course.
We have so many ideas that honestly, it's difficult today that he's 70, 75 years.
Yeah, it's an icon, but it's still young. There's still a long way to go, and still so many things to do.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Great insights, and as always, wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much. You're very kind. Thanks.